Happy Wednesday, everybody, and welcome to the Saratoga podcast. Adam and Dan, how we doing?
Cooler than last week, that's for sure.
Yeah, it was. It's an interesting week, tough week. I think but with everything that's going on in the world right now. But but we're a local podcast, so let's focus around some interesting events going on in local city politics.
We're going to do all local today. And Adam, I got to say, your lighting, I feel like you're in like a limo or something right now.
Oh, yeah, that's like my over the kind of the den, and I forgot that was up.
I like it.
I did not even notice it.
Really?
Really?
I love it.
I didn't notice it either till right now. I'm like, damn, and I don't even know how he did it or where to turn it off. So
I like the purple vibe. It's really it's giving me good podcast vibes.
Color halfway through the podcast, who knows?
So listen, you guys, lots to talk about. I want to dive right in. So last night there was a public safety forum, a Meet the Candidate forum hosted by the League of Women Voters, where we saw Kristen Dart, James Montagnino, and Tim Cole, the three candidates for Public Safety Commissioner, for the first time all together answering questions, not so much in a debate format, but we got to see them answer questions back to back, head to head. And I wanted to see kind of what you guys thought about the questions, answers, how they did. First impressions.
I'll jump in, and you mentioned it's not a debate, and I regret that we don't have true debates in this city.
Yeah, I know.
The forum is tepid, right?
It's freaking politics.
Yeah, let's face it. We want to see a little bit of spark, a little bit of jabbing and so forth. Not a ridiculous amount, not the whole night, but the forum aspect. In fact, they make it clear they will not allow criticisms of the opponent and so forth. And I want that, not because I want the fun of the criticism, although there's times when it is a little fun and interesting. But I think you need that, right? If, for instance, if you're an incumbent, you're due for some criticism, right? You can't be perfect, and your opponent has every right to point out what you've done wrong when you're the incumbent and so forth. And that just doesn't allow for that. What I will say is, comparing them to the ones from 2 years ago, these were better, or at least last night's was better. It was a little more lively, a little more it seemed to be at a better pace. The candidates, largely because of the rules, but maybe just because they chose to, they were cordial, for what that's worth. Like I said, that could be a negative, but it can also be a positive. So I took the positive of that to see them truly talking about the issues.
There was a lot of substance. There wasn't necessarily entertainment, but there was substance, which, if you were really looking to be informed about who they were and what their candidacies were about, it was helpful. Adam, what did you think?
Yeah, interesting you found that, because I found it kind of lacked in substance. I think a lot of the questions I found to be, do you think public safety is a good thing? And if so, how would you express your concern about public safety issues? And it came, public safety is important to me, and I would talk to people, kind of questions. And I felt like if you watch that and you were undecided, you're still undecided. If you watch that, or at least if you watch that and you were leaning, you're still leaning. I don't think the forum gives candidates the opportunity to really differentiate themselves. Candidates are able, and I did this too, give very kind of bland, generic, non-confrontational answers that with the hopes of just not upsetting anybody. And that's kind of what I got out of it.
This is so stupid, but it's such a pet peeve of mine when you have 60 seconds to make an opening statement, and every candidate spends the first 20 seconds thanking the League of Women Voters for having the forum in the first place, and doing this nice thank you. And I'm like, come on, the clock is ticking. Let's get to the meat here. My personal opinion, I thought Kristen Dart did very well. I think she's a great public speaker. I think she was eloquent. She was concise. I think she covered a range of issues in her answers. I thought Tim really differentiated himself with his law enforcement background, and he really, hammered home on his FBI experience, and that definitely set him apart from the two other candidates. I, of course, thought Jim took credit for basically creating like the sun, the moon, and the sky. But, he's an incumbent. That's, what I would expect him to do. Obviously, on a personal level, there were moments where I was kind of like raging for things that he, corrected from 2 years ago. But I thought some of their answers were interesting and some of the questions were interesting and salient. I wasn't expecting the question about short-term rentals, for example. I thought that was an interesting one, hearing their answers about short-term rentals and the potential public safety risk and how they would handle them. They all kind of agreed that they were a problem, but they had different ways of addressing them. Any other answers to any of the questions stick out to you guys as particularly controversial or interesting, or did you all kind of feel like how Adam felt? They were kind of
well, I'll say the one question I thought was interesting in the beginning when they talked about Darryl Mountain, the Darryl Mountain trial. And see how the pendulum has started to swing back, where the evidence has shown that Darryl Mount died of his own accord and he was not murdered by the Saratoga Springs Police Department, which I think 2 years ago, if you said that, you would have protests at your front door. I think now, as this trial has gone on and time has gone on, and Jim and Tim Cole, essentially, Jim came out and said the SSPD did not contribute, in a criminal way or a negligent way to Darryl Mount's death. Tim Cole came out and said he believes that's the case, but there is a trial going on now where all the evidence theoretically will be presented, and that he does not believe that SSPD had anything to do with Darryl Mount's death. So I found it interesting and good that we can start to now talk about topics without the fear of these kind of vile repercussions from an extreme element in our community.
I thought the thing that nobody really answered in that question was they asked how basically the candidates would help the community heal. And I do think that's going to be problematic, because I think one way or the other, no matter what the verdict is from this court case, I still think there's going to be dissent from the same group that is convinced really that unless the Attorney General investigates, they're not going to accept that there's no culpability on the side of the police. And I could be wrong.
I agree with you, Robin. Yeah, I agree. There will not be acceptance based on a verdict.
Yeah. And the trial started last Monday. I know Tim Cole referenced the opening statement that was made, that kind of summarized, in his opinion, the lack of evidence. And having gone through all the witness statements that were made available on the city website, myself, it is hard after reading, I think there's like 20 something witness statements from all different people, from all different vantage points, including someone who very recently came forward and said he saw the actual fall. It's hard to determine, what real evidence there is that would implicate the police in his death. But
hey, let me jump in here, because I got an interesting kind of story to talk about that witness that you just talked about. So I know that, and I remember talking to him. There was video released, and I thought News Channel 13 really did him a disservice, where there's video released that he gave his testimony to the grand jury years later, because the police came out and asked him to. He had seen what happened, and in his and I forget the exact verbiage, but in his testimony, he was asked to describe, I even want to say it was one of the BLM protesters, and he said, "Oh, it was the black man with the beard," and that was his description of this gentleman, right? So it's when you're asked to describe somebody, those are two descriptive terms that I think are appropriate to use. And News Channel 13 snipped that, and they played it in the context of making him look like he was like that's how he refers to people of color, are that black man. But that's he was asked to use descriptive terms, and the backlash he took from this little snippet, he's like, you know what? He's like, I'm not going to testify at this trial. He said they can use my grand jury testimony. They have it. He said, for what I went through. He's like, I have neighbors for 30 years who won't talk to me because they think I'm racist now because of how they misportrayed him. I thought it was really interesting to see how he took that. And he said, another thing he said is this is a civil trial. So you know what? Screw them. Let them figure this money out thing themselves. They screwed me over. So anyway, I just found that really interesting. I thought I'd share that.
That is interesting, especially considering that the judge ruled, I think 2 weeks ago, that race can't be considered a factor in this case.
Yeah, I'm just saying this was before. What happened to him was when he gave his testimony that was then given to the press, right?
Right. No, I'm saying ironically,
Yeah.
after all of that,
Yeah.
as this,
that he went through all that. He saw, he'll tell you he wills that the SPD was not there when Daryl Mount fell off that scaffolding. He was there. That's not what happened, but he's disgusted with the process. And I don't blame him. To be labeled something like that with just doing your civic duty was really a shame.
To clarify, you said grand jury. Are you talking deposition? I don't recall a grand jury.
Deposition.
Yeah, he was deposed, I think. So you know what I
or maybe not a grand jury, maybe a deposition.
It was it was a deposition. In fact, I'm like 99% sure.
Yeah, I don't think this ever went to a grand jury in any way.
So this restorative justice group that has just been formed actually could serve a purpose for the guy you're talking about right now, Adam, and people who may be dissatisfied with the verdict of this case. I mean, isn't that kind of what it's supposed to do? I mean,
I have no idea.
I think that is kind of like the purpose of it, is to take issues like this in the community and help resolve them.
Robin, fill me in on this. There's so much news coming. It just comes at you. Restorative Justice Committee. Maybe I should know this, but I don't. What exactly is that?
So, I'm going to pull up the exact definition for you. But basically, it was one of the points in the 50-point plan that the police sorry, you guys, I'm so tired today. I'm having struggling with my words. It was one of the points in the 50-point plan that was adopted in March 2021 for police reform that was passed. And it's essentially a group of community members where, you know what? I'm gonna pull it up so I get this exactly right.
Yeah, I'd like to know, is there a current status of it? Is it already appointed? Are they meeting?
Yes, they're meeting. Actually, they just met for the first time on October 10th. And the Restorative Justice Panel was created to provide an open discussion for the community about how to enforce and enable restorative justice in Saratoga Springs. Okay, so that's not super helpful because it doesn't describe restorative justice, but it's not just like a nebulous thing. It's like a defined process and definition. I'm looking at the agenda.
And do we know who's on it? I missed this completely.
We do. So all the city council members appointed someone. Of course, this was like a couple months ago that they appointed people. The folks that come to mind off the bat are that Commissioner Montenino, I believe, appointed
Daniel Mullen, correct?
Daniel Mullen, yeah, Lieutenant Mullen from the police department.
I'm remembering this now. It's jogging my memory as you're telling me this.
I believe Holiday Hammond was appointed. I'm looking at their agenda. Unfortunately, it's only welcome, introductions, let's share, next steps, and closing. So it doesn't give us much.
And this is on the City Hall website, and there's no video yet. Is that correct?
There's no video posted, but hopefully maybe there will be video posted. It did just happen on October 10th, so yesterday. So hopefully there will be video posted. But
busy day in the city yesterday with the Legal Women Voters Forum, the budget that I know you're going to talk about, and all this.
Yes, it was. And actually, before we get too off track, because actually I could talk about the Public Safety Forum extensively, and I'd like to. But we also have a mayoral candidate who is waiting here to join us to chat about the mayoral race. So do we want to jump into that and then come back to public safety? I know we're kind of toggling around a little bit.
Toggling. Okay, good.
What do you think?
Sure. Yeah, bring it on.
Yes, okay. let's honor his time commitments.
Yes. So we had asked all the mayoral candidates to join us. And today we are very pleased to welcome John Safford, who is the Republican candidate running to be our next mayor of Saratoga Springs. Welcome, John.
Glad to be here. Thank you.
Thank you for joining us.
Good to see you, John.
So, John, I got to ask you, what made you crazy enough to run for mayor of Saratoga Springs in 2023, sir?
Well, I think that well, first of all, I've been just appalled at the way Ron Kim has been running meetings.
Yeah.
Once, I'm running on civility, safety and civility. And I just, I talk often about the fact that civil is the base word for civilization. Once you disintegrate at that level, at a level of civility, which is what I've observed in many of these meetings, you basically destroy your civilization. And so from that standpoint, I said, somebody has to run against Ron Kim. Somebody has to present, a choice to the people. And so I stepped up to do that. I mean, it's interesting when you do this,
John,
like I had an
interrupt?
interview with Dan, and you start to review your background. My background is very good to restore peace here.
John, really quick, can I ask you just what are your thoughts on how you would run the meetings differently?
Well, first of all, it's a tragedy that they can't have pre-agenda meetings. Most of these problems should be worked out at a pre-agenda meeting. When you were on the commission, you guys would meet and you would work these things out. They don't even have them, really. I mean, they have to have them, but they just don't talk. And then they try to resolve these things at the regular meeting. It just doesn't work. So my goal would be to, just hammer things out if we have differences, and we will, at the pre-agenda meeting, so that at least, we can present a somewhat unified council, at the council meeting. So that would be a number one priority for me.
And just to clarify for folks, what John's talking about is that on Monday, the Monday before a city council meeting, the city council gets together and you run through the agenda that you have planned for the next day. And so when I was on the city council, typically what would happen was that in that pre-agenda meeting, you would be able to suss out whether or not you had support or maybe an issue with something on your agenda, and you could work it out at that moment or in between the pre-agenda meeting and the city council meeting. So you wouldn't end up in a spot where, for example, you were putting a issue up for a motion and you couldn't even get a second. And it went nowhere. Like, you would avoid moments like that because you would have preempted them by addressing it the day prior, and avoid those like extremely awkward moments of conflict.
Yes. So I would definitely, test everything there. The other thing is a chairman just can't be an egotist. You just can't be. And one of my safety, in fact, the number one point in my safety plan is to whoever the commissioner of public safety is, the mayor and the commissioner of public safety have to have an understanding, at least, as to how to present, because especially when you have these, you were just talking about, some of the people who come and try to upset the meeting. You have to have a working relationship across the board between the mayor and the public safety commissioner, because it's very confusing with a commission form of government. Really, the only time that the mayor has any control, you might say, over police action is when they're sitting as chairman, or the presiding officer is the way it's described in the charter, but it's the same thing. The chairman or the presiding officer has control over that meeting just for that period of time. And if you don't have a good working relationship, it shows weakness. My big concern is sort of the image that it puts out to the public, that if the commission, that there's weakness, and that translates over into a problem for safety for the city, which we can talk about if you want.
John, Robin, can I jump in with something? I don't want to cut you. John, I saw on your Facebook page that you were going door to door, and you had some great pictures of that. Credit to you. I think every candidate should be going door to door, and perhaps they are. I know certainly Tim Cole is. I know you are. I assume the others are, but I haven't seen that. What are you hearing from the people when you knock on the door and talk to them about the goings on in our city?
Across the board. I mean, you can't. Everyone. It seems like everyone has watched the harangue between the commissioners and the mayor, or the commissioner and the mayor. People are very upset about that. In fact, I was on another interview, and the interviewer asked me, what are the issues? And I told him, I said, the only issue that seems to really be important to people right now is this incivility, this angst, these problems at these meetings. And that's on what I would say 90% of the people that I talk to are aware of this and are concerned about it. I was out this morning. I was putting out signs and doing door to door this morning. I just got done doing that coming here, and I'm going to do more this afternoon. But people are concerned. They just feel as though the city is falling apart, and it's not. I was at the what was it? The Excellence Forum yesterday. I don't know. It was really good. It's most of the they're trying to bring networking and cooperation to the city, and this city is wonderful. This city would function even if we didn't have a government, in my opinion, because the people are so connected and so caring about Saratoga Springs. But ultimately, if you don't have a functioning government, that will fall apart. And that's the concern a lot of people have, that our government is falling apart. So, and that's real for them.
How do you feel about Tim Cole's suggestion to have a sergeant at arms?
Yeah, I think that's an excellent idea. Tim, I'm obviously campaigning for Tim. I think he's probably the best candidate. It doesn't, if someone else gets, I know Kristen Dart. I've met her a number of times. She's active over at the lodge, and I'm an associate member there, the Frederick Allen Lodge. So I'm familiar with her and could get along with her if that was the case. But I think Tim Cole's probably the best candidate. And so I've talked to him about what we should do about this disorder that, as you were talking about before, it really doesn't matter what the evidence will point to. More than likely, those types of disruptions will at least try to be done again. And so what I would do is, Sergeant of Arms is a good thing, but we have to have a very clear process for talking there. We need it in writing, and what we need to do is, once it's set, we need to send it to the Attorney General's office and have them sign off on it.
That is a good suggestion.
Yeah, so that's what we're thinking of doing. At least I am. I've talked to Tim about this, or whoever it is, but it has to be posted and it has to be approved by the Attorney General's office, and then we will follow that. So there's a couple of dynamics that happen as I think you guys have talked about it, that you don't see what's really happening in the background. You just see what's on that's being videoed. But people are talking in the background. That should not be allowed.
Yeah.
It's a privilege. That's not a right to be. I mean, the charter gives them the right to speak, but does not give them, anybody, the right to really even talk during the meeting. It's a meeting that we want to be transparent. So when those decisions are made, we want people to be able to watch it, and
But you could kick everyone out after public comment and just have the live stream happen. Really.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
You could
Yeah.
absolutely do that. I mean, it may take extreme measures to do that.
Ron, I don't mean to cut anybody off here. I just had a kind of a quasi follow-up to my last question. We talked about, you talked about Mayor Kim's incivility and the interruptions. And then, there were some common things going on, the press conference after the shooting, all these lower level, even though they're hyped up high, but what's getting lost is where are we going as a city? These big, important questions that should be the central to a campaign are, in my view anyway, largely non-existent. Does that concern you? I mean, Ron Kim's incivility, I'm not saying it's unimportant, but these things are consuming the entire talk of the city hall, the city council meetings, the elections. Do you agree with me on that? Do you have concerns?
It's a concern to me because just like I was talking about before, sooner or later, you really don't have a functioning government. We don't really have a good functioning government now because of all of those things. There are some things that get done, you have the consent agenda, at least people get paid, but the issues that you're often talking about are not being addressed. They're just overridden by chaos.
Yeah.
And yeah, sure, I'm absolutely concerned about that and would want to stop that.
I also often feel that, I know at one of the previous city council meetings, I was speaking to Commissioner Golub afterwards, and he had passed an agenda item that was really exciting, which was the construction of a park, basically for dirt bikes, like for biking over by Skidmore, for like the Saratoga shredders, the kids who are like dirt biking and mountain biking, and which was really exciting, like a attraction for like a whole nother level of tourist attraction stuff for kids to do. A really exciting project, and it had been part of his agenda and had been passed, but no one was talking about it, knew about it, because the whole meeting had been eclipsed with the nastiness between the commissioner and the mayor.
Right.
So even the things that are happening are getting lost because of the.
Well, I mean, I publicly will commend Commissioner Golub. I mean, who knew he would have the capabilities that he has to be able to function even under this, dysfunction. I'm the first one to sing the praises of Commissioner Golub.
John, as a commission form of government, we talked about you have to work with the other commissioners, but there are some points and powers of being a mayor. As the overall kind of the captain of this city, are there any directions, projects, initiatives that you would take on as the next mayor of Saratoga if you were to get elected?
Well, I think I don't know. I assume everybody's aware that basically through my role as the veterans chairman for the Elks, I'm very, very engaged, particularly for homeless veterans, but in the homeless situation, and have been for a long time. When I first got here many years ago, over 20 years ago, I didn't have much to do, so I ran the breakfast program for the Salvation Army and really got engaged with a lot of the homeless at that time. So ever since that time, I've had an interest in it. Now it's become a big political issue. But I've been engaged in it for a long, long time. And so it's the homeless, the recovery community is something that, in fact, that was one of the reasons why I was at that conference yesterday, is my interest in finding good practical solutions for it. I don't know if you want to talk about that, but I know a lot about it.
Do you think we've been utilizing the county resources enough to help in those areas?
I think that the relationship between the city and the county, particularly with regard to this issue, is an issue. I mean, I know the county and this mayor, I mean, this mayor has no credibility whatsoever with the county, as you probably are well aware. And obviously I would have a lot better relationship, but we have these disparate attempts. We have 3 separate attempts right now that are not, I mean, some of the people engaged in it talk, but it's not fully engaged. You know, I mean, we have mental health here. That's county. Code Blue is a county initiative. The low barrier shelter is a city initiative. At least the mayor's taking credit for it, but it's really, you know, Meg Kelly that did that and still maintains that, by the way. And it's dependent a lot on mayor's decisions to keep it going. So it's kind of a rock and a hard place. But then we have our homeless commission committee, and I think Ron did a smart thing in appointing Tom Ruin the head of that.
Yeah.
Yes.
And I think that they're doing that. You know, it's to find a permanent solution to this is difficult.
Yeah.
You know, and I think they're focusing in on that place out by Weibel right now, where all that construction's going on with Stewart's, and they're changing the road, which it needed to be changed. A lot of people aren't aware that road is going to get much more reasonable. You know, that area out there where it'll go to a sign, but it's
but it's not being done now, right? It's exclusively the Stewart's reconstruction, right? That's not.
Yes,
a
but
dual,
I
not a dual
believe
thing
that
going
some
on.
of that movement has to do with that you know,
The whole intersection, I think.
the intersection being done, because that's a dangerous intersection. I mean, right there you have, you know, there's things that the city could be addressing if they had a little better relationship with the other communities around here. And that's a role that the mayor should be playing, but this mayor is not capable, it seems, of doing that.
I guess my more specific question, though, John, is that I've heard, you know, the city hiring its own social workers, for example, to come work with the homeless. And I get tripped up on that a bit, because we have a Department of Social Services at the county level that we all pay into with our own, you know, with taxes. And to me, I don't know why we would duplicate a system that exists already that it seems we're not working with effectively enough, and taking on, you know, trying to form our own kind of Department of Social Services and have our own social workers seems to me like it could be, you know, astronomically expensive and duplicative of something that already exists that we aren't utilizing.
Especially when we have just wonderful, all the not-for-profits have wonderful people who are capable of doing this. Yeah. So, okay. So why am I running? And I am a natural networker, if you will. I'm very capable of putting things together. I mean, and making things happen in a good way that, like I had an interview the other day, and sometimes people kind of laugh. You know, I'm a manager of homeowners associations, but if you ever have lived in one, or if you ever, I mean, they can be some of the most difficult places to deal with people. And I've been doing it for a long time, and all of my HOAs are peaceful. I know how to deal with people. I know how to deal with egos. I know how to get people to work together to get something done. And that's a skill that we need right now in the mayor's office.
John, don't you also basically head up the whole Flag Day parade?
Yes, I'm the head marshal for the Flag Day parade. And actually, the American Legion guys have been very helpful. They come over and they'll be marshals with me. It takes about 10 marshals to get that parade functioning right.
Yeah, that is no small feat.
No. Yeah, it's a good example, though. I'm a member of the American Legion. And by the way, Be the One is a very important program that I support. Be the One is a national program put out by the American Legion for veteran suicide. Just putting something out there for that. be the one is important. But yeah, so I worked out with those guys to come over and help us, because a lot of the Elks walk in the parade, and so if, we need some outside organization to come in and help us marshal, and that's what they do. We're thinking maybe this next year, right at the end, we'll have an American Legion group walk. All the guys that come to help.
By the way, the Elks have an event this Saturday, don't they? A fundraiser on Saturday?
Yes, that's and that's to raise money for our veterans. That's going to be cool. It's it's, I think it's 60s, 70s music.
Dizzy Chicken.
Yeah.
2 to
Dizzy
6.
Chicken. Yeah.
Yeah.
If people don't know, the Elks is just a great place. And, our Wednesday night dinners, a little bit of that goes to veterans. And we have a very active, a lot of people don't know, it was the Elks that established the first veterans hospital after World War I that ended up being turned into the VA.
Wow.
So the Elks have been very involved with veterans activities, since their inception.
Well, John, where can people find you on the ballot? You are running on the Republican line. Is that correct?
Yes. So I'll be on B line, about in the middle of, the mayor's right. You have all the judges first, and then there'll be mayors, but I'll be right on the second line. And they can find out, by the way, I have a website, Safford for Mayor, S-A. A lot of people misspell my name. They like to put a T in there. But it's SAFFORD for FOR Mayor, MAYOR.com. So there's information on there. Of course, my Facebook page is Safford for Mayor as well, and is very active. I'll be posting on, I was out, like I told you, I was out today, so I'll be posting, some of the things we found out.
Excellent. So if people want a lawn sign, or if they want to support the campaign with a donation, they can head to your website.
Absolutely.
Excellent.
And it's usually, I'm doing a lot of the deliveries myself. I mean, I have people who are helping me, but I like to go out there and just thank the people and talk,
One last question. Who's the kind of the most interesting person you've met in your campaigning? Any real surprising or interesting, unique people that you've met that really stand out?
Besides us three.
Yeah.
Besides the three of you. Well, it's not unique, but and a lot of people, this will be controversial for somebody, but the one who I have a lot of interaction with is Robert. Used to be Jack Flash.
Robert Millis.
Oh, I just had him.
Millis, yeah, he's an interesting guy. We have very similar backgrounds. When I was interviewing with Dan, I have a background in automation. In fact, I worked in Dan's dad's police department in Cheektowaga years ago. But at any rate, Millis and I have a very, very similar background with regard to technology. And so, for some reason, strange fellows in politics, right? So so we're kind of friends and not friends. But at any rate, he's one of the more interesting people that I've met through this process.
That's awesome. Well, guys,
just a quick point that John alluded to. We're both from Buffalo. John's home was, maybe 4 miles from my home. I mean, granted, a generation, we're 20 years apart. But and John had back in his day in technology, worked with my father in the early '80s to bring some technology to the Cheektowaga Police Department. Small world, right? Here in Saratoga.
Small world, yeah. I mean, we were the first ones to bring, laptops in the cars and have them connected in, be able to get all that information. So,
that's kind of a big deal.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I'm still involved in technology. I just have a lot. And that's one thing that the city could use, is someone with a lot of knowledge of how technology can be used effectively in a community like this. The commission form of government does not make that easy, by the way. It's one of the biggest hindrances to using technology to bring stuff together. But at any rate, yeah, I mean, I have a lot of background that I can make available in this mayor's office.
John, I think the most surprising place I've run into you is that I logged on to a seminar about crypto one time, and there you were.
Yes, well, it's not the most popular topic right now, but yeah, it's blockchain technology. I'm very familiar with.
Yeah,
yeah, I am a crypto enthusiast.
I was tickled to see you on there and loved it. I loved learning about crypto with you. So very cool. Well, thank you so much for coming on today. We really appreciate your time, and we thank you for stepping up to run. I think we all have a deep appreciation for anyone who's willing to throw their hat in the ring here. So guys, unless you have any other questions,
no, I say, John, I know you served our country in Vietnam, so the soldiers have
and I like to point out that I was an infantry officer. I signed up to go to Vietnam as a platoon leader, but they sent me to Japan.
Yeah, well, you still signed the line, and that's something that I never did. Dan did as a police officer. I don't know that Robin did, but you still did it. You still, you answered the call. So anyway, even though if you were shot at or not, I appreciate you and your service for our country. Just want to throw that in there.
Yes, I concur.
I echo that sentiment.
Excellent.
Thank you,
John. Thanks for joining us.
I've come to appreciate those thanks these days. When I first got out, it was the furthest thing from my mind. As you get older, you realize you did something.
You did, and we all reap the benefits. So thank you so much, and thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
I don't want to overdo that. Thank you too much, but the League of Women's Voters. I'm going to be on in the 26th in a debate like that.
Okay.
We'll be watching.
All right, I'm sure you will be.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Oh, so that's when the mayoral event is for the League of Women Voters Forum. Will be the 26th. I knew it was upcoming. I just didn't know the date.
It's 26th. It's pretty late. But the 26th, and yes, we will be watching. So I just want to let everyone know we have reached out to Chris Mathieson and Ron Kim to invite them on the podcast as well. Ron Kim has declined, citing his schedule, which is unfortunate. I really would have loved to have him on to talk to him about his candidacy. But hopefully we will have Chris Mathieson on soon, so we can hear from him. And we have extended invitations to the public safety candidates, and we'll be extending invitations to the supervisor candidates as well. So hopefully we can have everybody on before November 7th.
Terrific.
Yeah.
We might have to do a special, right? We might have to do a special one.
I know we might have to do a special, a very special episode.
More of us, folks. More.
Yeah. Okay, so you guys, I'm going to do a hard left turn into something that is tripping me up, which is it's budget season, and Commissioner Songby has just come out with the city budget, and I am perplexed because everything I understood about the city's finances were that they were really strong, that we had incredibly strong sales tax revenue, that we had very, very strong and healthy fund balances, that everything was pointing in the right direction. But this budget that's come out has a little bit of doom and gloom to it. We've got tax increases. We've got immediate blame on the last administration for putting us in a financial pickle, so to speak.
Seems to be a pattern lately, right? Blame the previous ones.
Yeah, and actually, go ahead, Adam. Sorry.
I was going to say, when in doubt, blame the predecessor.
Yeah, which is a little absurd. And I actually have a statement from Michelle Madigan that I would like to read as we get into that. But did either of you get a chance to watch the budget presentation?
Yeah, I did, and Dan and I briefly touched on this last meeting.
Oh, sorry.
No, it's all right because
but not the one last night. No,
it gives an insight. My one issue is, and this is a little shallow of me perhaps, but back when I was running against Manita for Commissioner of Finance, at no point did she ever say she was going to raise taxes, not once but 2 times. And for me, it's frustrating seeing kind of seeing the public duped a little bit, and then there being no repercussions, because Michelle Madigan, as Commissioner of Finance in 10 years, did a very marginal tax increase once in the midst of COVID, which if you're going to do it, that seems a time, once in 10 years. And now in her 2 different budgets now, Commissioner Shangvi has raised taxes 2 times. And if she was honest about that intention during campaign season, maybe it would have had effective campaign. Again, little sour grapes by me. I understand, I'll get over it. I do like Commissioner Shangvi and most of the things she does in that position. But for me, that was my issue is this continually raising taxes, and especially to fund things like, you talked about this earlier. There's a $300,000 line item in there for RISE, for services for our homeless population. That again is Saratoga is taking on a big burden of this homeless population that should be subsidized by state and county funds, not just city funds, which is what we're doing right now.
Well, they, Commissioner Songvi and Commissioner Montagnino also agreed to run 4-man engines for the firefighters, which has always been a big bone of contention. When I was public safety commissioner, I did not see a way that was financially feasible within the budget that we had. And I was surprised that they agreed to it so readily. But now, the bill has come due, and she cites that in her budget message as one of the reasons that they're in this kind of predicament. Which, what do you expect? I mean, it was probably one of the most expensive commitments you could have made in terms of the city budget. So it just seems a little irresponsible to me now to be raising taxes and putting pressure on the different departments to make cuts. I just think better planning was in order. But I'd like to read a little bit of this statement from Michelle Madigan, if we have a sec. Yes.
Oh yeah, go ahead. Yeah, I was nodding. You didn't see.
You got to do it in her voice though.
Oh, I can't do that.
All right.
So
read in your voice. That's right.
He says, decisions by the past administration have nothing to do with why a tax increase is being offered up with this 2024 city budget, especially when the city council is sitting on a 30% fund balance, which is considered an excessive amount of taxpayer money. In my 10 years as finance commissioner, the highest fund balance I ever had was maybe 18%. The New York comptroller would call 30% excessive. If you're talking about recouping back taxes, well, I completed an interim recouping back taxes process during my first term as finance commissioner. So it's been about a decade, and that is historically the time period in which our city collects back taxes, as we have a high rate of residents who pay their taxes. It's been about one full term for the current finance commissioner. Has this process even begun yet? Beware, it's an expensive process. Be sure it's worthwhile, as it comes at additional taxpayer expense. As for reassessing, that falls to the accounts department. As I've always agreed with John Frank, the former accounts commissioner, that is also an incredibly expensive process, so I'm sure it's worth it to the taxpayers. Also, if this is a problem, has the current administration indicated a willingness to begin a reassessment? Can't blame past administrations for work you're unwilling to do, even start in the current administration. So she ends by saying she would not vote for a budget that presents a tax increase with a 30% fund balance. And I agree there's such cognitive dissonance there. And on top of that, you guys know what a geek I am about listening to all these meetings, right? At night, I'm cleaning the kitchen, I throw on my headphones, and I listen to all these city meetings, including the Civil Service Commission meetings. And I don't think a lot of people know about the Civil Service Commission and what they do, but they are an incredibly informative and important group at the city who essentially all the civil service positions, which are the vast majority of the jobs at City Hall, are governed by civil service law, and they all are approved by the Civil Service Commission. When new jobs are proposed, they go through them, the requirements and so forth. Probably not articulating this as best I could, but because it's a little bit more technical. But there's 3 people that sit on the commission. They're appointed. It's Jennifer Leidig, Joanna Zangrando, and Tim Holmes is the chairperson. And their specific function is to provide an orderly and uniform system for the administration of civil service in the city on the basis of merit and fitness as provided in the civil service law of the state of New York. These rules have the force and effect of law and apply to all positions in the classified service of the city of Saratoga Springs and the city school district. So they approve things for both the city and the school district. Anyhow, in their last meeting, they started talking about their budget. And the entire civil service department is run by one woman, Carissa Salvo. And it is such a massive job that she does. It's hard to describe. I mean, she's basically doing the work of 3 people. And she's been working in the city since 2016. And they put in a budget request. And essentially, they had a meeting with the finance department that they described in fairly great detail. And it was a really negative meeting. They received an email 20 minutes before the meeting that said that they were supposed to come in with something like 3.5% cuts to their budget that they knew nothing about. They got there, and I guess Commissioner Songvi had not planned on even attending the meeting, but then at the last minute decided she could be there via Zoom. And, the people on the Civil Service Commission are all volunteers who are giving up their time to be at this meeting to advocate for the budget for the Civil Service Department. And essentially, the crux of the meeting was, you're not going to get the money that you're asking for. And the message that was repeated to Carissa Salvo, who runs this department, was too bad if you want more money. You knew what you were signing up for when you took this job in 2016. And when I tell you what she's asking for in terms of money is 2% cost of living increase plus a 2% salary bump every year, just to stay in line with the rest of City Hall, who gets about a 4% increase in their salary every year. So we're talking about like tiny amounts of money, tiny amounts of money. She also desperately needs an additional staff member to help run the Civil Service Department, which again is—
To clarify, Robin, she's the only one besides the sitting members, the commission on the commission itself. She's the only staff member, the only worker bee, if you will.
She has one part-time helper, but when she started in 2016, I believe she had someone full-time, and then that full-time position was eliminated. And so she was able to get back someone part-time, but she works almost half the Saturdays of the year. She works because that's when they do like all the physical exams and all the civil service tests that the state gives. So she works Saturdays, she works holidays, she's not compensated for them. It's an extremely demanding job, and other municipalities of this size have at least 3 full-time people working in their civil service department. And so she has been asking year after year for support and continues to get denied. And so, when I look at this budget and I look at this budget message and I'm listening to the Civil Service Commission meeting, he talked about this for like an hour plus. I mean, in real detail. It was maddening to hear about, because there are people in City Hall who, if we lost them, I do not know how the city would function, not to mention the replacement cost would be astronomical. Like if Carissa Salvo suddenly decided, she was sick of this and took off, you would have to hire a consulting firm to fill her job and do her job function until you put out, the job announcement for her job, try to find a candidate. It would be a whole very expensive situation to replace someone like her. And so to not give her a 2% bump in her salary, just to nickel and dime someone like that just makes no sense to me, and really kind of sums up the problem I have with this budget and how the city is being run right now.
Do I understand, Robin? Yesterday you were telling me there was a meeting, I believe at 6:30 that started, or a budget presentation. Could you clarify that and tell what
No,
that
no, no.
was?
I'm sorry. I was talking about the budget presentation that Commissioner Songby did. I guess it was last week, I think.
Okay, yes. Okay. For some reason, I thought there was something yesterday that occurred.
No.
No,
Yesterday
okay.
it was just the public safety forum, and I think that was it yesterday.
Okay, I did catch part of her presentation. It was during the city council meeting, correct?
Yes.
Yes, I did catch at least part of that. Okay.
Yes. And actually, as we're podcasting right now, they're having the public safety budget workshop, which is a bummer. I would have loved to have watched it. But they scheduled all these workshops for like in the morning and midday. So I'll watch it after the fact. But
well, I see what's going on here. They're doing it when we're podcasting, so we can't watch. It's a conspiracy.
They think I'm not going to watch after the fact and talk about it next week. They got something coming. But anyway, I'm finding this to be extremely frustrating, and I feel like the city is already on fragile footing. So, yeah, made me very unhappy to listen to this. I'm just looking at comments here. Sorry, Bruce Clion chimed in a few minutes ago saying, "Are you saying we should not fund RISE? The Republican-dominated Saratoga County leaders will never do anything other than the minimum for the county's indigent population. Your beef should be with them." Bruce, I agree with you that they are not inclined to help us out, but I think the onus is on us to do the work and sit down and have the meetings and develop the relationships to make that a functional relationship and make them want to help us.
Yeah, because I'm the one who commented on that, Bruce. Let me clarify that RISE is a fabulous organization who is doing incredible things. I can speak firsthand to it, and deserves those money and those funds. But there is only so much. Where there's a finite amount of money that the city has, and when there's other opportunities and other people who should be responsible for paying that tab, I agree with what Robin said. Of what have we done? What steps have we taken to pursue that money on a county and state level? And so that it's not the whole entire burden is on the taxpayer, the Saratoga Springs taxpayer, and again, like we see, causing our taxes to go up.
I would also just remind people that the county budget is almost $1 million a day. It's almost $365 million. So it's enormous as compared to our city budget, just to kind of put things into perspective. Michelle Madigan also just weighed in saying, I can show this actually, civil service is a small budget. You can't balance a budget by cutting that budget. We work to grow civil service incrementally and add much needed software to the department. And actually, Michelle, they address that. And they don't have enough resources to even transition from paper to electronic files by using that software because they're so overwhelmed at the moment. They need to grow, not be cut. Much of their budget is supported by the school district too. Yes, I concur. Anyway, guys, I'm sorry. I'm sort of rambling about the budget, but listening to this meeting just got me worked up.
Hey.
All right. Well, I think we're. Did Robin freeze there?
No, I'm here just mulling this.
It was a rare Robin pause with a chance for one of us to jump in.
Caught it off guard, like Robin's not talking or moving. What's going on?
I know. You guys talk.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. I think we're approaching an hour. I think we covered some good things today. We're looking forward to talking with other candidates. Again, we throw the invitation out to all candidates to come and speak with us. We promise to be fair and have the same line of questions for all candidates, and we welcome more candidates coming in. Do you guys want to jump to cheers and jeers now?
Why not?
Dan, take it away.
Okay. I'm fired up because I had to call City Hall not just an hour ago or hour and a half ago. Have you ever called City Hall and gone through the voicemail or the voice prompts? Oh my God, this is a jeer, folks. Trust me. And it's a low-level jeer, right? Talk about a first world problem, right? With God, what's happening over in the Middle East right now and so forth. I feel almost silly saying it, but it's something I just experienced, and we're paying tax. And if you listen, after they say, if this is an emergency, hang up down 911, your first options are, if you're a vendor, press a number. The second one is if you're applying for a taxi or doing something about a taxi business, taxis these days, right? That's the number 2 option. And you have to listen through a roll of things that are so irrelevant before you finally get to things that are more relevant. It's really archaic. It's really bad. Certainly we can do better. Again, let me announce, pretty minor in the world, in the grand scheme of things, but it still fired me up. Sorry, what's that, Robin?
No, don't press 0 for like additional help because you just get the loop again. So just
okay. Yeah, I didn't even know that. I wasn't even smart enough to try that. I've got a cheer here to Commissioner Matt Veach, or I'm sorry, Supervisor Matt Veach and Commissioner Jason Golub. I talked to Matt Veach earlier on something that will be on Saratoga report tomorrow. I interviewed Matt, and he talked about how him and Commissioner Golub worked together to work on getting some funding and some fixing to the bridge for the Geyser Road Trail over the railroad tracks on Geyser Road. I guess it was full of potholes and it really killed your bike. And he praised Commissioner Golub. It was like, wow, you just don't see this in government these days, much less within their own parties that they're fighting. But you have a Republican working with a Democrat. They're working together. I'm sure if Jason Golub was here right now, he'd be praising Matt Veach. Good for them. I want to see more of that. I want to see more of that at every city level. That is my cheer this week for both of them. A quick announcement, a plug, and then a shameless plug within the plug. The Chamber of Commerce is having the Business to Business Expo tomorrow at the Gideon Putnam from 3:30 to 6 p.m. And that is it's kind of like a speed dating thing with a number of businesses. I will be there in my role. There's my shameless plug as the Saratoga Discovery Map owner. I have a table, and I will be there. So come visit me. And you see a lot of businesses there. They'll be giving away some swag and stuff, kind of neat stuff. It's a neat event to go to. It's free. It's open to the public. 3:30 to 6 tomorrow at the Gideon Putnam, the Chamber Business to Business Expo. It's a really neat event. This is my first time as a vendor showing up. I've always been in the past as an attendee. So please show up.
Dan, if I come, am I going to get any like little swag from you? What are you giving away? What am I getting?
Some low level swag. How's that? Hey, you get all the maps, Robin, because I like you. I'll give you 20 maps. And
I put my house on there. It's featured, right?
Yes. That it's funny. They could, if I so chose. I'd have to pay them, but they would put a house on there if I asked them to put your house on there.
I mean, that would just be the icing on the cake. Adam, cheers and jeers.
Yeah, so I guess my cheer is, today I got a call that no parent wants to get from the middle school that my daughter was sick and in the nurse's office. She has very sporadic asthma, but apparently when it hits, it hits. And so, I raced home, got her inhaler, and by the time I got to the school, they had already called an ambulance. So it was pretty serious. But when I got there, I was greeted by the SRO, the school principal. The nurses took me in to see my daughter. We got her inhaler and her oxygen levels returned, and she's okay. But it was as a parent, it's extremely disturbing to hear that, the ambulance was called for your child. But at the same time, the professionalism from the principal being there to the school resource officer to the nurses, all kind of playing a role in helping me remain calm so I could keep my daughter calm. So just shout out to the staff of Maple at Middle School. And it really, thank you for helping my daughter myself.
Awesome.
So that was my cheer. I'm going to stick with on the emotional role here. And I just want to kind of acknowledge what's going on in Israel. I think it hits all Jews. We all have some connection there. And so, I pray for, all innocent civilians, because there's innocent civilian lives were lost and will be lost. But I, especially pray for the people of Israel and protecting this slim sliver of land that, as Jews, in the back of our mind, we always, that's home base. And even as a really kind of reform, non-practicing Jews, the state of Israel, and just having that, because the Holocaust was not that long ago, and having that piece of land where that fallback land, that Alamo, not Alamo is the wrong term, pardon me, but that land that we could go to and just feel safe and put up our defenses, and now that it's under attack is extremely disheartening. And I just wanted to acknowledge that, and that my thoughts and prayers are with the people of Israel.
Well, shit, I can't do a cheer and jeer after that.
I know, mine looks rather petty right now.
Yeah.
Well stated, Adam.
Yeah, that was really well stated. And when you said you're running late to the podcast, you really minimize the reason why, Adam. I'm impressed that you got on at all.
Yeah, well, it was. I mean, to be honest with you, I then I went. I made myself I added some vegetables that were going bad, so I made a quick meal. So I did take a little more time, but anyway, that's not. You know what? We've acknowledged it. Robin, come on, throw out a cheer and jeer. That's
okay. Okay, cheer and jeer. Okay, well, my jeer is really stupid, but it's just that the Bills should never play a game not in America, because we just can't do it if we're not in the USA. No, never again with London. Never again with London. It's no, Josh, stay in good old America. Okay, that's my jeer.
That was horrible.
And then my cheer is totally kid related, which is every time there's a bad Sunday with the NFL, I turn my attention to Saturday at the PBA fields and watch my kids play flag football and watch all the kids out there playing flag football. I've got 3 kids who play, and it's just so freaking fun. And it's just a joy to watch them all. And the sportsmanship is awesome. You know, win or lose, they all, the behavior actually this season has been like exceptionally good. And it's just been great to see some good old fashioned playing with kids. And I don't know, I kind of need that with everything going on in the world right now, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's my very innocent cheer for today.
All right. Do we have anybody next week?
I've got to look at my booking schedule. I've got to check with our booker, our guest booker, and our production assistant.
That's right.
Our production assistant slacked off today and forgot to put up any chyrons and banners. Yeah, so we're gonna have to have a chat with her. But I will get back to you on that when I check my.
We'll certainly have.
Chances are we will have somebody next week, correct?
Yeah, definitely.
It is campaign season after all.
Yes, absolutely. We definitely will. I've just got to check to see who's scheduled. But I am looking forward to it. And it was wonderful to see you both.
All right.
Awesome.
Stay charming, Saratoga.
All right. Bye, boys.
Thanks for watching, folks.